Hey, welcome back to the channel. The tariffs are back on. We're going to talk about what that means for Vancouver real estate specifically. We're going to talk about what's happening in the development side of the equation when it comes to not just Vancouver, but other areas of Metro Vancouver, and what's happening from a feet on the street perspective as we enter the spring market. Real quick, if this is your first time to the channel, my name is Hassan. I'm a real estate agent in the Vancouver area, and I make educational real estate content to help you on your real estate journey. When I'm not making videos like this, I'm helping people just like you buy and sell real estate across the Lower Mainland. So if that sounds interesting to you and you want to chat with me one-on-one, you can book me for a free call in the Calendly link below or on screen, and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a future video. All right, I hope you had a wonderful week. We're going to jump right into this. Are they on or are they off? I'm talking about the tariffs. It seems that every single day we wake up, we have a new story, some new rhetoric coming from the US. As of me filming this, today is Thursday, just announced that the 25% tariffs will be on as of Monday. So just a couple days after you watching this video. What does this mean for the real estate market? What does it mean for the economy? Governor of Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem, was speaking last week, and just to quickly summarize what he was talking about is, kind of comparing tariff situation now to, COVID scenario, what the differences are. And, he mentioned his words with COVID, there was, a drop off in the economy, but then a bounce back. And obviously we know what happened, rates fell to the ground, and all of a sudden investment, peaked back up, and things kind of went haywire in the other direction. That's not going to occur when it comes to tariffs. There will be no bounce back. It will be, in his words, a structural change. Our output will be affected essentially forever. It's going to decrease. Our output's going to go down because of all the business that we do with the US. Now, I think it was last video where I was talking about pandemic and tariffs and what similarities can we draw? And the only thing that I could see similar was uncertainty. That was it. We had uncertain times with pandemic, and so the bank felt they needed to drop the rate. Obviously, it created a lot of investment. We didn't really, they weren't able to foresee that people were going to shift their living patterns. They're going to want to shift for more space. They're going to want to move, further eastward, get more space. So, you kind of had this perfect storm of cheap money and a high motivation to basically get away from anyone that's in close proximity. Now, when we talk about tariffs, very different situation. This is just going to be, I hate to use this phrase, but it's going to be the new normal moving forward, especially if those tariffs, last for a long period of time. And so, we have that in terms of, okay, for builders here in Canada, now, as they're sending their exports into the US, that demand is dropping. So now they're obviously going to have to reduce their production. They're going to have to let go of staff. A lot of these businesses probably won't be able to recover from that drop of revenue. So that's just, that's one angle, that's one piece of it. But, the other piece of it is the counter tariffs that, we know are going to occur. And that's going to, very quickly affect people at the consumer level, consumer spending wise. We're going to see the cost of things, go upwards. And when the cost of everything increases, things that you may not expect in the real estate market would also increase. Insurance premiums, for instance, if you're in a strata, those would increase because insurance companies would be looking at it and saying, well, it's going to cost more to replace this building. Those premiums, they're already high. We're going to see those increase as well. Now, I don't want to dive too deep into the tariff scenario. I did that in the last video, but let's talk about new construction, pre-sale, how this all affects it. I did mention in the last video how, pre-sale projects or adoption rate, sell-through rate is down. A lot more people are kind of stepping back from jumping into pre-sales, and at the same time, fewer projects get launched because developers have a set amount of time to be able to, hit their project minimum to get their financing and actually be able to move forward with the project. So there'll be a minimum percentage of units. And they have 12 months to do that. They had 12 months to do that. So a new announcement by the BCFSA, which is basically the real estate governing body, where they're allowing as a pilot program projects that have 100 units plus to now take up to 18 months to hit their minimum. And this is, directly in response to the development community saying, 12 months is a very short amount of time. It was already a short amount of time, but over time we have seen the scale of these development projects grow so significantly, right? Years ago you'd be looking at a 100 unit project or 150 unit project, and now you're seeing towers that have 350, 400 units in them. And so, having to sell through, say, 250 units or whatever that number might be to hit the financing minimum in a span of a month, really tough for the market to absorb that, especially when we're in an uncertain time. So the BCFSA announced 2 changes that are upcoming. Number one is allowing that 18-month time frame, and make no mistake about it, this is also to encourage developers to start rolling, because a lot of times the developer doesn't want to launch a project, especially in slower markets, knowing they're going to have to hit a minimum by 12 months. It's just too much risk. And if they can afford to hold on to the land, some people will view that as land banking if it's a very long period of time. But on the developer end, it's like, well, what am I supposed to do? I don't want to have to go through this process again. So now they have a longer period of time, number one, which is good. Number two, they also have to include a summary sheet within the disclosure statement. And this is for consumer protection. So this summary sheet, it will outline things like, what your responsibilities are as a buyer. Now, I do need to caution and preface, this is a very bare bones summary sheet. I've taken a look at it. It's a 1-pager. It basically says, to learn a bit more about this, see this section in the disclosure. To learn a bit more about this, see this section. So do not think that you're going to get any level of detail in this summary sheet. It's almost like an added reminder to say, you need to look into this, you need to look into this. This is the section where you'll find it. There's about 8 or 9 lines in there. I'll pop it up on the screen actually so you can see what the sample template looks like. But that is for consumer protection purposes. And hopefully, both of these changes, specifically, having the 18 months now to hit that minimum, gets things rolling again, within the development side of the equation. The market, when we talk about these, condo units and condo pre-sales, we have all of the inventory that's on the MLS, and that continues to increase. I have alerts set up for many areas across Metro Vancouver, Fraser Valley, for different buyers, for sellers when we're monitoring pricing. I'm waking up now to 20 emails strictly from the MLS with different areas, different listings hitting the market, and just absolutely exploding through the day. I'm sitting here doing this video, and I just know when I'm done, I'm going to look at my phone, and I'm going to have a whole bunch more to go through. But, relatively speaking to how it's been over the last 4-5 years, it's definitely picking up. From a communication perspective, I've had about 5 or 6 market assessment requests done this week. So spring market, typically this is where buyers get really active in the market. I would say in my world, I'm having just as many seller consultations, if not more, than I'm having with buyers, which is a bit of a reversal. Generally, I'm having a lot more buyer conversations right now versus sellers. So it's going to be interesting to see, how does this play out? How does this inventory situation play out versus the demand? I personally think this is going to be a spring where we're probably going to still have lots of opportunities for buyers, especially in the condo space. There's a couple of examples that I'm going to talk about specifically. One right here, actually in New West. So I was mentioning about condo inventory. You have inventory that's on the MLS. You have pre-sale inventory as well. And then you'll have ready to go inventory, condo inventory that is not on the MLS. The developer has these units to sell. So you wouldn't actually see that there's any of this product available. It doesn't actually inflate the number, but there are several projects around the Lower Mainland that are either just completed or nearing completion, where the developer still has a whole bunch of units left to sell. Now, the example I'm going to give you here, like I mentioned, is here in New West. So I believe I've spoken about it on this channel, but Pure West, new Bosa development here at the Key, 2 towers, tallest tower in New Westminster, one of the towers is, and you know, long story short, at pre-sale time, which was 2017, you know, a lot of units were sold. Tower 1 almost fully sold, and then Tower 2, the developer basically sold about 50% from what I'm told, and had all of these units remaining to sell later on towards completion time. Those units, Tower 2 is now completing, and those units are now going to be available for purchase. So, you know, in these scenarios, you have investors that had purchased into these pre-sales, thinking they were going to flip them, not rent them out, but thinking they were going to close and flip them, or not even close, sell them, assign them before closing. So now you have those units hitting the resale market, but you also have the developer now that has lots of units that they need to sell. So you'll see these influx of inventory where, again, if you just look at the MLS, you'll see a lot of inventory, don't get me wrong, but you won't get the full scope of what's actually available out there. It's a similar story in parts of Burnaby. You know, there's a developer in the news last year who basically had these units, you know, they're called holdback units, had them across several developments. And all of these holdback units were the ones that were trickiest to sell. So they were maybe the larger 2 beds, the sub penthouses, and basically hoping for a better market in order to sell those units. So you have all of this ready to go inventory that, you know, developers have, and, you know, they're competing with their own customers, their own clients, because you have all of this resale inventory as well. I went a little bit deeper into the New West scenario specifically in my Substack newsletter. I'll link to it. There's some stats in there if you're curious about, you know, what we saw with Tower 1, which already released, and so what I expect that we're going to see with Tower 2 in terms of, you know, condo buying opportunities, we'll say. Look, I'm not going to come out here and say, you know, this is your best time to buy. If you don't buy now, it's not going to happen. You know, the reality is none of us know what the future is going to bring. Like I said off at the top of the video, it seems like one week we have tariffs, the next week we don't. One week it's 25%, it's steel and aluminum. Next week it's blanket on everything. None of us really know, and there's going to be a lot of reactionary policies, you know, happening this year, and the Bank of Canada is going to have to monitor and decide what they are going to do with their key interest rate. It's, you know, pretty much a foregone conclusion that there will be some more rate cuts. When I say some more, is that one more cut this year? Is it 2 more cuts this year? It's all up in the air, and you know, any real estate agent or even economist that tells you, hey, this is what's going to happen with the real estate market, they're full of it. And the reason that they're full of it is not just because we don't have a crystal ball, but we have no idea what happens from a policy perspective. And we don't have to look any further than BC, how it's been over the last couple of years. We had the short-term rental legislation. We had multiplex legislation, which obviously inflated some land values in certain places. We had transit-oriented development, which also affected values in certain cases, affected the market. So no matter what I sit here and tell you, you know, it's not gospel. There's always changes happening. It's going to be a year of uncertainty, which I have said previously in previous videos. We're all learning as we go. And so when I do these videos, I try and tell you, you know, what's happening today in the market, feet on the street, what is actually going on. Next week's video will be different. Next week's story will be different. You know, hopefully we get some positive news in terms of this tariff scenario because, you know, the reality is It's going to have wide-ranging impacts, not just on the economy, not just on housing, but livelihood in general here in Vancouver. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, hit the like button, because what that does is it takes the video and it sends it out to more people so they can also learn from it. And if you enjoy weekly real estate content, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss next week's video. And lastly, again, if you're in the Vancouver area or the Fraser Valley, you wanted to chat with me one-on-one about your real estate situation, you can book me for a call, or you can just give me a call. Send me a text, shoot me an email. All my contact info is below. But I want to thank you for watching this video again, and I look forward to seeing you next week.